There are many movies, TV shows, and documentaries about America's first serial killer. The two most well-known, however, are The Devil in the White City and American Horror Story. The Devil in the White City is famous for having a well-known quote of his. If you're a fan of American Horror Story, especially Hotel, then you know its connection to the Hotel Cecil. However, you may not know the connection that it has to another famous hotel called Murder Castle. There is also a character in the show that goes by the name James Patrick March. James portrays the first serial killer in America, H. Holmes.
Yes.
Herman Webster Mudgett was born May 16, 1861 in Gilmanton, New Hampshire. The notorious serial killer, sometimes known as the Beast of Chicago, called himself Henry Howard Holmes or just H. Holmes to escape his troubled past. Holmes's father, Levi Horton Mudgett, was very abusive. His mother, Theodate Page Price, was cold and distant. Holmes would often feel powerless and endured isolation, food deprivation, and cruel punishment for his emotions. Holmes was also bullied in school. As a child, Holmes was afraid of doctors. His classmates found out about his fear and forced him to stand in front of a human skeleton in a doctor's office. At first, the experience frightened him, but then it eliminated his fear of doctors and death. Soon he gained a fascination for death, medicine, and surgery. His love for medicine and surgery led to him practicing on animals, and some people even say he was accountable for his friend's death. He ended up getting married to a woman named Clara in 1878 when he was only 17 years old. Clara and Holmes moved to Michigan, where he went to college at the University of Michigan. While in college, he would steal corpses and in turn use them to make false insurance claims. He was almost kept from graduating because a widowed hairdresser accused him of making a false promise to marry her. Clara and Holmes had a son, Robert Lovering Mudgett, who he abandoned in 1885 to make his move to Chicago, Illinois. After arriving to Chicago, he got a job in a pharmacy next to Jackson Park. At the pharmacy, he underwent the infamous alias Henry H. Holmes. While in Chicago, many things happened with Holmes. He ended up taking over his business and was then later rumored to have killed the original owner. While he was still married to Clara, he married another woman named Myrta Belknap. He filed for divorce a few weeks after they got married, but the divorce never went through. His time in Chicago is also when he began killing people. After taking over the business, he would kill people for their property. He also made all of his employees have life insurance, naming him as beneficiary so he could kill them and have their life insurance. After he killed his victims, he would send their bodies to local medical schools. During this time, Myrta became pregnant with his daughter, Lucy Theodate Holmes, and he sent them away. However, he continued to keep in touch with them and would even help raise Lucy. Still in Chicago, Holmes bought an empty lot in the Englewood neighborhood and prepared to build a structure with shops on the bottom floor and apartments on the top. Little did anyone know that this would become a death trap for many people. The only person who truly knew what this structure would become was Holmes. Holmes switched builders and architects frequently throughout the building process so that no one involved would be able to realize the end goal. The final product ended up being 3 stories high and stretched an entire block. The 3rd story is where Holmes lived, and the 1st story contained shops. What were on the 2nd floor and the basement were the most shocking part, and the reason his home came to be called Murder Castle. Murder Castle contained secret passages, trap doors, soundproof rooms, doors that locked from the outside, gas jets to asphyxiate victims, stairs that led to nowhere, doors that opened to brick walls, a kiln to cremate people, vats of acid, and tubs of quicklime. All of the doors and some of the stairs were connected to an intricate alarm system. Whenever someone stepped into the hall or headed downstairs, a buzzer would sound in Holmes's bedroom. There were even random chutes in the walls that led down to the incinerator, the acid, or the quicklime in the basement.
Then you can appreciate what I've built here. Secret rooms, hinged walls, acid pits, asphyxiation chambers.
In 1893, an event called the World's Fair, or the Columbian Exposition back then, took place. The event was celebrating the 400th anniversary of Christopher Columbus's arrival to America. The exhibition featured many things, including a 1,500-pound statue of the Venus de Milo made of chocolate. However, the Columbian Exposition became better known for the murder castle of H.H. Holmes. The event attracted more than 27 million people, some of which Holmes lured back to his house. During the Columbian Exposition, Holmes opened his castle as a hotel and promised everyone cheap lodgings. Unfortunately, this is how many people died. Many of the victims were women who were seduced by Holmes. He had a bad habit of getting engaged, and after having control of their life insurance, they would disappear. After killing his victims, he would drop them down chutes where he would then dissect them, clean them, and sell the organs or skeletons to medical institutions or even the black market. Holmes ended up leaving Chicago and meeting a man named Benjamin Pitezel. Pitezel and Holmes made a plan to fake Pitezel's death and gain $10,000. After Pitezel purchased the $10,000 life insurance policy, him and Holmes went on a trip through Colorado, Missouri, New York, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and Texas, where they continued to commit fraud. While on their trip, Holmes ended up getting married to Georgiana Yoke, while he was still married to the other two women. Holmes was arrested for fraud in Texas and met someone named Marion Hedgepeth, who knew him as H.M. Howard. Holmes told him all about the insurance scam with Pitezel. While Holmes was in jail, Pitezel moved to Philadelphia and opened a fake patent office to scam inventors. After Holmes was released, he met back up with Pitezel, rendered him unconscious with chloroform, and set him on fire. Holmes then told Pitezel's wife, who was in on the insurance scam, that Pitezel was in hiding. However, Holmes was frightened that 3 of her 5 children would contact the police, so he ended up killing them. Hedgepeth ended up turning Holmes into the authorities. It is unknown why he did this, but some say that Holmes was supposed to give him a cut of the money and never did. When Hedgepeth ratted out Holmes for Pitezel's death, authorities were unable to do anything because they had no evidence. However, Holmes had a warrant for stealing a horse in Texas. Whenever they brought him in, they asked him about Pitezel's death. He admitted to insurance fraud, but not killing Pitezel. He claimed that he received the body from a doctor in New York who shipped it to Philadelphia. He then used his medical experience to fit it in the trunk. Holmes almost got away with it until an inspector remembered the body being in rigor mortis, meaning the person died recently. Whenever Holmes was asked about how he got the body to stiffen after rigor mortis was broken, he had no answers. Holmes was arrested for Pitezel's death November 1894 in Boston, Massachusetts. Whenever he was questioned, Holmes gave many different answers to how many people he killed, all with contradicting numbers. Some of the people that he had stated that he killed were still alive. He said that he killed 27 people, changed it to 9, and then increased it to 130, although some people believe that it was over 200. While Holmes awaited his trial and sentencing, he authored an autobiography called Holmes's Own Story, in which he wrote, "I was born with the devil in me. I could not help the fact that I was a murderer no more than a poet can help the inspiration to sing." Holmes sold his story to the Hearst Corporation for $10,000. Holmes was hung for the murder of Benjamin Pitezel on May 7, 1896. Before his death, he stated that he was turning into the devil. He even stated that his face was beginning to look demonic. When the floor dropped below him, his neck did not crack like it was supposed to. Instead, he twitched for 20 minutes and was later pronounced dead. Strange fates befell the people connected to his case. The man who tipped off the police was shot by a Chicago police officer. The warden at the prison where Holmes was held killed himself, and the office of the district attorney was caught on fire. The only thing that remained was a picture of Holmes. The former caretaker of the castle, Patrick Quinlan, committed suicide in 1914. He left a note. The only thing on it said, "I could not sleep." Holmes was buried at Holy Cross Cemetery outside Pennsylvania City. Despite Holmes's arrest and execution, many people believe that Holmes bribed authorities to avoid punishment. The theory suggests that Holmes was allowed to escape and that they hung a different man. The rumor started because while Holmes was allegedly safely in prison, the murder castle was caught on fire after witnesses saw two men go inside. The building remained standing until 1983 when it was torn down. The site is now occupied by the Inglewood branch of the U.S. Post Office. In response to the rumors in March 2017, Holmes's great-grandson petitioned to have his remains exhumed so they could undergo DNA testing. Whenever his great-great-grandson had him exhumed, they discovered a cement sarcophagus. The DNA results showed that the body belonged to H.H. Holmes. In the end, Holmes was thought to have killed over 200 people. He confessed to at least 27. 9 of his kills were confirmed, and he was only convicted for the death of Benjamin Peitzel.
A toast.